Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 2 of our We Ready College Readiness Gear Up. If you want, you can go ahead and share this with other people who we think would benefit. But today we have a real treat in store. We actually will preview the Common Black College application. We'll start there. And then after that, we have some special guests who are going to come on and walk us through the Common application, as well as Naviance as a support for collegiate document housing, and then just to shoot some questions about how we can maximize our college applications and increase our college opportunities. So let's dive right in. So I want to take a moment to introduce you all to the Common Black College application. So this application is actually an opportunity for people to apply to roughly 50 plus colleges and universities in one sitting. So what makes this cool, CBCA is actually having their 20th anniversary. So they've been around for quite some time. But the first thing I want to point out is the website itself. So the website link is commonblackcollegeapp.com. I'll drop that in the chat. And you'll also be able to find these resources on our website. So no need to fret. You can find them later. But on the website, which you should be able to see, you'll notice that they actually have a bunch of tabs up here that'll help you navigate the site a little easier. But the first thing I want to point out is the actual cost. So right here where it's highlighted in green, for one application fee, so you're only paying $20, that's it. That one fee is going to give you an opportunity to apply to all of these schools. And that's what I think is probably the most impressive about this particular instrument, because application fees are high. And so to be able to pay $20 and apply to over 50 schools, that's a real win. Anybody who's applied to colleges before, we know how expensive that can get. So they're over 50. So right now there are 58 member institutions, and they're all listed in this area of the website right here. I want to point out that if a school is blue, that means that it's hyperlinked to an actual virtual tour, which I think is pretty cool. So that's a new feature of the Common Black College application. You go to their website, you look at this list of schools, and if they're highlighted in blue, you click it. And once you click there, it'll take you to a YouTube virtual tour of that particular campus. They have personnel and staff that are a part of that tour. They highlight their degrees of study. So there's a lot of information that you can get from this one site in terms of HBCUs. The other thing I want to point out is that down here at the bottom, it gives you a checklist of all the steps to go through to complete the Common Black College application. It's really easy. The truth of the matter is you go to the site, you create your own profile, and then you upload the things that you're responsible for. Where things can get tricky, though, is this check mark right here. So that is the fourth one down. Your school counselor must create a CBCA account. So if you are at a school where you're wondering or you're unsure if the institution, your high school, has a Common Black College app login, I would definitely arrange a meeting with the counselor, or if you have a free drop-in or office hours, just to pose that question. And then if not, let them know you plan to use this instrument. And so they're going to need to, because if they don't have their own login to upload the other documents that the school itself houses, such as your official transcript, then your application is incomplete and these schools can't make a decision about you. So make sure your counselors have a login. The other thing I want to show is that down here at the bottom, they have a few help videos. So this first one is just like an overview, which is kind of what I'm doing right now. So I don't know that you necessarily need to go to that one, but they have a YouTube channel. So I would suggest subscribing to it because they are constantly evolving and changing. They're adding new member institutions almost every year. When I first got familiarized with it, the cost was $35 and they only had 50 institutions. And so now the cost is lower and the number of institutions is higher, which is a real bargain in my opinion. These how-to videos actually walk you through each step in the event that you get a little confused or you're not as tech savvy. I think they've done a good job of providing image-based click support. So it's showing you each step for you to do on your own computer. The other thing that this site does is they actually highlight students who have utilized their instrument and gone on to be accepted into a multitude of institutions. A lot of times what happens is when students complete this application, they notice that they're getting more acceptance letters, but then they also notice that they're getting more scholarship offers. And so that's a real win as well. And then finally, I want to point out that on this bottom part right here, they have an opportunity for you to get information from their member institutions. So if you click right here where it says request info from member institutions, it'll take you to a prospect card, and you can complete this information to start receiving additional pamphlets and recruitment brochures from the institutions that are a part of the Common Black College application. This is super ideal for high school freshmen, sophomores, and juniors, especially juniors. So this would be a really good time for them to go to this website, fill out this prospect card, and now they'll start to get tangible mail from historically Black colleges and universities that are a part of this application. And that'll help them get some like hands-on leaflet press through. They can say, hey, I like this one, or maybe I don't like that one. But it also puts them into those colleges and universities database. So as they prepare for their senior year, there's some familiarity, and actual admissions officers might start reaching out to them. And then finally, there is an opportunity for you to receive additional support. One of them is this Contact Us, which most reputable websites have. But the last one is that they actually have a public Facebook group. So if you're a senior and you utilize the Common Black College application, let's say you're wondering why you haven't heard from a school, there are recruiters and admissions officers who are a part of that Facebook group. I'm in it. I know it's tinging all day long. But the plus is that while they're in that group and while they're helping out, there's a lot of connections being made as well. So students that are in there are connecting like, yo, I'm thinking about this school, or I'm thinking about that school. Parents who are in there are feeling extremely supported because the staff at CBCA is in there responding, but then depending on the schools that are in there participating, they can get immediate responses from the admissions personnel. So I would strongly recommend, if you're a junior or senior and you're considering historically Black colleges that are listed on this application, that you simply go and join their Facebook page, because that'll give you their Facebook group. That'll give you a lot of information. So that is it for me in this particular segment about the Common Black College application. And now we're actually going to hear from Kieran Kennedy, who is a member of the Common application, which houses over like 800 colleges and universities. So he's going to come in and tell us all about it. Hey, Kieran.
Hi, Chanel. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing just fine on this Thursday. Sorry, it's a long week. Thursday evening. So I'm glad. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And
so I was just telling our participants that the Common application has like 800 some odd schools on there, right?
We'll get to that.
Okay.
We actually have over 900. So I've got a quick slide deck we'll step through, and
okay.
We'll cover a number of things. The first thing, I'm not going to read this to you, but our mission of access, equity, and integrity in the admissions process is very important to us. And with recent societal upheavals around Black Lives Matter, it's even more important for us to continue to stay razor focused on how we help students, and especially Black students, make their way to the right college and university for them. Chanel, you asked me to talk about a couple things. First of all, sort of the Common App at a high level. Going to talk a little bit about fee waivers associated to the Common App, and then some final financial resources. I'll leave a few minutes for maybe some chat questions, or I'll be hanging on to the end. So if there's questions at the end, I'll be available as well. So here's your answer, Chanel. 922 members are actually using the application this year. We have institutions in all 50 states, including the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico. We actually also have, amongst those 922 members, we have 62 international members. We're often looking for students to come and study at their international institutions. And we have over 18 countries represented out of the United States amongst our membership. As we drill down within our Explore colleges, and I'll pop our website into the chat. But within our Explore colleges, you can go and actually look at institutions that have a specialized mission. And I've sort of highlighted what that, when you expand that, what it looks like, and you actually can look at all of the institutions that are historically black colleges and universities that are within our membership. We have 13 institutions that are historically black colleges and universities amongst our membership. The ones that you see in blue are new this year. Norfolk State University and Tuskegee are just about to go live, but the rest of the institutions are in the darker color are already members and have been members for a bit. So excited to have those institutions as members.
Kieran, quick question. Are you currently sharing your screen?
I am.
Okay, because I can't see it.
Okay, whoops. Oops. Give me 1 second.
Okie dokie.
I thought I was. Oh, there we go.
There we go. Now,
sorry about that. So
no,
I'll just step you back through these really quick. That's the one on membership, selecting the institutions, and then here are the historically black colleges and universities sort of listed out that are members of our organization. Common App is a nonprofit organization. The Common App doesn't charge students to sort of use the Common Application platform. Each institution, about 50% of our institutions do charge a application fee. Another 50% don't. For those institutions that do charge a fee, we do have a fee waiver program. So there are some people that will sort of qualify for any number of the fee waivers on the right-hand side. We sort of base that on some of the sort of accepted fee waiver sort of standards. Over $92 million in fee waivers were granted in the application last year. And we also have members that have fee waivers. So, you were talking about going on a virtual visit. About 300 of our members have a virtual visit via their Explore Colleges page. And they might say, hey, we'll give you a fee waiver if you do an Explore Colleges page. So we have that as well. And then within the application, one of the other things that Chanel wanted me to focus on. So when you're actually in the application and dashboard kind of gives you a view of your what you're working on. My colleges, that's the list of institutions you're applying to. The sort of Common App are the specific questions within the Common Application. You can actually search on colleges. So once you're in the application, you can use that same criteria to look at specialized missions institutions. But then we have a fairly robust financial aid resources tab within the application as well. And that talks about everything from in this screenshot, we talk about the FAFSA process, but everything from the FAFSA process to other ways of being able to identify scholarship opportunities as you're sort of considering the institution that you want to attend.
That's super helpful.
So that gives you sort of a high level sort of overview based on what Chanel, what you wanted me to cover. And so we're really excited about our growing membership and our ability to provide a variety of institutions for students to apply to.
That's really awesome. I think one of the questions that I do have about the Common Application, because so it houses like students' documents and things for those member institutions to access.
Yes, absolutely. So we're going to get a discussion about Naviance later. So a counselor that uses the Naviance platform, we have integration with Naviance. So that counselor is able to move the students what we call school forms. So that could be anything from a transcript to a recommendation letter to a midterm report. And that information is put into the Common App, and it's put in there once. And then when the student applies to multiple institutions, they don't have to then request that information again, that it's already stored in the Common App and then can be sent to whatever institution they apply to.
I mean, listen, I'm going to be honest. I'm jealous that these tools were not around when I went to school, because we had to do every single application all by itself, pay every fee or get a waiver for every single one individually. Nothing was housed. So we were making lots of copies. And if I'm really going to date myself, it was like computers weren't as advanced as they are right now. So the online application wasn't even a thing. We were literally typewritering, if that's a verb. I taught English, I can make up words. So we basically had to use a typewriter to like complete our college application. So students really have a streamlined process that will make their applications to college a lot easier. I think that is awesome.
Thank you. Right. And if you were using a typewriter, I may have been using a stone and a chisel. I'm
like, this is amazing. Okay, so Karen, you are going to hang out with us to the end.
I'll hang out with you until the end, and then if the questions come in regarding the Common App, I'm happy to address those.
Cool, thank you. I'm going to transition us over to Miss Wynn Hernandez. So Miss Wynn Hernandez is with Kansas City Public Schools, and she is a college readiness specialist. She's going to talk us through the Common App writing process. Miss Wynn Hernandez.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can't see you.
I can't see me either. What's going on? You just saw me. Okay.
You were visible a second ago.
I know. Hang on. This is just being difficult with me. Okay. Or I'm gonna see what I can do. And then I'm able to talk about either topic, but I'm gonna hop on and hop back out. Okay.
Okay, you go right ahead. While she does that, if there are any specific questions from our participants right now, I'm happy to either try to answer, or I can add Kieran back and he can address any specific Common App questions that you all might have. Remember, although this is a gear up kind of a workshop, it is interactive. So this will be the time if you have questions to pose, because we're just here to help. Yeah, be ready. Mm-hmm. The other thing, while I got you, that I want to go ahead and talk about is the FAFSA application actually opened up October 1. So for seniors out there, if you haven't already started completing that document, you're definitely going to want to. Where we can help is next Thursday. That is actually our area of focus. So we will be talking specifically about completing the FAFSA and how to search and navigate various scholarship opportunities, because college is extremely expensive. So make sure you join us next week. And we do have a question. Can seniors use this app? Yes, both of these apps, the Common Black College application and the Common App, are both recommended for seniors. And they're a great way for seniors to streamline their college application process. And really a big trick with college is applying to as many as possible. Because college is so expensive, we might have our heart set on a particular school, but maybe it's expensive and they don't offer us any money. And then we get accepted into another school that has just as good, if not better, programming, and they offer us a scholarship. Where Common App and Common Black College App help with that is they give us an opportunity to apply to multiple institutions with one instrument. So it makes it really easy and effective. Great question, Ms. Brown. All right, let's try to bring. Well, yeah, we can see you. Hey, girl.
I don't know why it's giving me problems, but okay. So, do you want me to try to cover?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm going to share my screen then, and you let me know if you can see it.
We can see it.
Okay. So I'm assuming everyone has their username and their password. And I'm just going to go ahead and show you this demo for the Naviance student. And I'll show you some features. I imagine that your counselors would have all of this information. And so this is kind of what it looks like, right? And there are some really neat features that Naviance has. There are a lot of videos and little information that will pop up. And so one of the features, well, let me explain the platform. You need this to kind of work with the Common Application. And everybody should use the Common Application because, you know, you're filling out one application and you get to send it to so many schools. I think Kieran mentioned that they're up to 900. I think a couple of years ago, they were at like 700. And last year, I think they were at 800. So they have a lot of partner schools. And as a student, you can do a lot of research here as well. And you can also do, I guess, think about what kind of school is going to be successful for you. So one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to start looking at colleges. And Naviance is a platform that middle school students are using now. High school students are using it. So you don't necessarily have to be a senior in high school to, you know, start thinking about that process. And let's see. So one of the things that I could do is I can think about, oh, do I have family members in a particular part of the country, in a state? You know, I need somewhere to kind of do my laundry every once in a while. I need a home cooked meal every once in a while. So I'm able to, you know, look it up by state if I wanted to. So that's what I'm going to do. Everybody has family in Texas, is what I believe. I do believe that. No, I don't want Rhode Island. I don't know anybody there, but I'm looking for Texas. And then it's going to pull up a lot of options for me, right? So then I can start clicking certain schools that might prove to be interesting. Oh, there's a culinary institute. Maybe I'll take a look at those, right? So I want to add that to my list. And then what it will also allow me to do is to kind of look at different schools and kind of compare them. I might be able to take a look. Look, there are multiple deadlines. It's really a useful visuals that they provide. I can go straight to the website if I wanted to. And it will tell me about college visits. So I don't have any, probably because of COVID right now, but I'm sure that students have also taken a look at the virtual colleges, virtual college fairs, and also have looked at perhaps meeting one-on-one with those virtual meetings with college representatives. And let's see, I can look up upcoming college events. I have 2 colleges that have been added, and I'm jumping around, but I hope you guys can follow along with me. I can go back to the home menu at any time.
I got a quick question.
Sure.
I heard you say that middle school students are using it all the way up through high school. So does Naviance store all of, like, what is it house, like what is it keeping? Like if I'm an 8th grader, what is ideal? Ideal use?
Right. So 8th graders are now starting to have conversations about possible careers. They're also trying to think about courses that kind of match up with those particular careers. You know, a lot of times I feel that students, especially when you turn, you know, into a senior, the questions that they're kind of thrown at them are, where are you going to school? What is your major? And I'd always feel like sometimes you don't discover that until you arrive at college, until you land in some particular class, and you really fall in love with, you know, your professor and the study and authors that are offered. And so it's kind of like asking, you know, a 16, 17-year-old student, who are you going to marry? So I don't think you have to have that decision made up when you're 17 or 18 years old. So this kind of allows you to play around a little bit. And you should be doing research. You should be thinking about what your strengths are. And let's see. I'm going to think about maybe I'm good at math. Oh, here's some possible options for me, all alphabetized, thank goodness. And so, oh, I just thought maybe I could, be an accountant. But these are all areas where math is an important skill, where you'll be taking a lot of math courses. So that's nice that pulls up. So you don't have to like type in a career here. You could type in a particular course that you really enjoy. Maybe I enjoy writing. And
now,
so
what if
other possibilities for me too?
What if you typed in the standard like middle school response or underclassmen response, and you typed in gym? What would come up?
Okay. You're around more middle school students, aren't you?
I'm around high school now, but I've seen it all. That's what they like to say, lunch and gym. I like going to lunch and gym.
I didn't find gym, but your suggestion inspired me to type in athlete.
Okay.
And so here are potential things for you to consider. So maybe you could be an agent, and that might lead you to consider the following. So it's going to give you like some of the soft skills that you might need. It's also going to tell you other occupations that you could consider as well. So it's not a narrow search. It's going to offer you a lot. And then as you click on these different ideas, you're going to make more discoveries about what you could study. Maybe it's going to link it to the different colleges as well. So this is a really good feature and something that students should take advantage of. Not only that, what are most people kind of interested? How much am I going to make?
Right.
So that also appears. And this is all pulled from the Department of Labor. These are not made up numbers, right? So this has a connection with like real salaries that people are making. It also might tell you like how much this would be if you were getting paid per hour. So that is some more information. So, I could see families kind of sitting around this, like talking about career planning, talking about, jobs that are necessary in a particular area. So that that you're in a field that's needing you at this time. And if I
got a question. So
sure.
When I go to a school or I'm in a district and they don't have Naviance, then what?
I think different schools are using different platforms. So if your school doesn't use Naviance, I've heard of Missouri Connections as another one. Here in the state, more and more schools are using Naviance, and I can't remember. There might be a couple others, and I can't remember the names of it. But this is something that is very, very popular. So if it's not called Naviance, it's just called something else within your school district.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna actually add Kieran back. Thank you so much.
No problem.
If you want to go ahead and stop your share, I'm going to add Kieran. I'm going to bring in and introduce Dr. Wilson, and then we'll start fielding some questions.
Great. Let me get to this. Stop sharing. Here we go.
All right. So now we got everybody here. We've met Ms. Wynn Hernandez. We've met Mr. Kieran. And now we are going to introduce everyone to Dr. Jermaine Wilson. He is the Director of Counseling and Support Services for Kansas City Public Schools, as well as our AVID District Coordinator. Hi, Dr. Wilson.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me.
I see you in your human shirt. Come on. Yes, honey.
It's one of my favorite shirts.
So we do have a question in the chat. This first question is, what are some common hangups that students experience with the Common Application? Kieran, maybe we can shoot that one to you first as the Common App expert here.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I would say that probably one of the biggest things is getting a sense, and we've done some expansion of our Explorer colleges, but really kind of getting a sense of what the requirements are for the various institutions that you're applying to, right? So when you think about those requirements, things like do they have a required writing sample, right? Does this institution need a recommendation letter? Does this institution use courses and grades, which is sort of like a self-reported transcript? So I think, and the nice thing is I didn't show you the dashboard, but the dashboard kind of guides you through, once you pick specific institutions, what is required. So I think sort of probably the biggest hang up is really kind of understanding sort of the broad requirements of the institutions that you want to apply to, but our tool is built in such a way to help guide you through that.
Anybody got anything to add to what Karen just shared with us?
He's the Common App expert, so
what he says goes.
I didn't get to talk very much about Naviance, but I'd like for Dr. Wilson to kind of explain why it's important for students to use it, especially when they're seniors.
Yeah, absolutely. You did a fantastic job of giving a deep dive. I would say that one of the biggest things that the platform is college exposure. I love Supermatch, which is one of the tools inside of the Naviance platform, because it really helps students to align what it is that interests them, what they're looking for, and it gives them a place to go. I can't say how many times, even in 2020, when I run into students and they have no clue what's outside of Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you're talking about schools, they're like, I've heard of that, but I'm not sure where it's at. And so I think as Ms. Wynn Hernandez was talking about searching for careers, thinking about majors that you might be interested in, anybody who was a student of mine will tell you, I used to tell them, like, if you like fashion, if that's your passion, let's look at what careers and majors align with that. Because if you're going to be in college, you're going to spend money, you might as well learn to love what it is that you're doing.
And that's super affirming. I mean, not to derail us too much, but young people need to be affirmed in that way. I think that sometimes that's the turnoff with college in general. It's like, I'm artsy or passionate about something that I don't associate with college. I don't think college is where I need to be to do, and then you fill in the blank with the thing.
Right.
It's important for grown-ups who've gone through it to actually affirm young people's interests as like their catalyst for a career. Like what moves you and what you like and love is what's going to keep you invested.
Right.
We have a question here from Ms. Jarvis. She wants to know, what are some of the best ways to help students utilize this platform in COVID and distance learning? That's a really good question.
It is. I'll say, as far as the Naviance platform, I think many of the students are still stuck in, this is not what's normal or what I'm used to. So I think being able to get contact, some FaceTime, even if by phone, voice time with them, just to remind them, like, hey, I want you to log in. I'm sending you a message through the Naviance platform, or I want you to log into my Google Classroom at this time so we can touch bases on these things. Because I think so much that you're thinking about adults trying to pivot with all the changes, kids are trying to make that pivot too. We still have students that are still trying to get used to school in this method. And so they don't really know how to go to the registrar. Do I still need to request my transcripts? Is college still going to happen for me?
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and you landed on something critical. I think where Naviance and the Common App and the Common Black application all really help is that they're giving middle and high school students exposure to platforms, which is preparation for college, because a lot of colleges utilize platforms like Blackboard, etc. And so when students get an opportunity to, Google Classroom's doing that for them too. So they're getting an opportunity to upload docs and get really familiar with how to utilize various, as Kieran mentioned, like dashboards, so they can network through or navigate through those kind of things. So yeah, that's huge.
I'll also say, Chanel, that the platform is just for college and career exploration. It does serve as a personal portfolio for our students. So Course Planner allows for the students to think about what kind of courses they want to take as they matriculate into high school and through high school. We import their transcript and their course grades from our student information system into Naviance so they can see how well they're progressing towards graduation. And that's the biggest thing. A lot of times when kids know where they stand and they see that they're making progress toward the mark, students want to do better.
Yeah.
And we start to see more students being empowered and actually taking responsibility in those classes that they might slack off because they want to see completion. They want to know, I'm ready to graduate.
Right.
I have all of my credits.
That's what's up. We have a question here about parents. So can parents track students' progress on the Common App with a separate login, or will they have to log in with the student's information?
That actually can be done via a separate login. And we actually have a role. Now, don't get sort of frightened by the title we gave it, but it's called the advisor role, right? Okay. So really the Common App, every Common App user is inviting their counselor as part of the process. Mm-hmm. But then an advisor can be assigned. So that could be a parent, a grandparent, it could be a friend. You can actually invite someone to be your advisor, and then they have a little dashboard that Dr. Wilson, as you were just talking about, like seeing progress, right? So they can watch the progress of that particular applicant across the potential multiple applications. On average, about five applications are submitted via the Common App from one applicant. And then we'll go back to, I know we were talking about Naviance, but we actually made a decision to actually add a question within the Common App this year, specifically asking students about their experience sort of during COVID, because we obviously know that it's impacted how students have been learning over the last 6 to 8 months. We're not quite sure how long that's going to last. So from a distance learning perspective, if that was an issue, right, they have the ability to say, hey, you know what, I didn't really have good connectivity and I was having some challenges with my learning approach during COVID. So we've given students an opportunity to share their individual experiences.
Kieran, I had a question about that. If is that optional?
Yes, yeah, that's an optional, right? That's an optional question that they can respond to.
So our students sometimes come across supplemental essays or an optional essay, and what's your recommendation for them?
If they are required, so that's it. We've got a writing sample within the Common App, but then if an institution actually has writing samples, most of those are sort of required writing samples that they've actually put into their member screens and sort of in the My Colleges area. So we would obviously strongly recommend that you respond to those. And sometimes it's, hey, pick two out of 4 or pick 3 out of 5, but to be able to respond to those appropriately.
I sometimes run across students who say, I don't have to turn in an essay or I don't have to turn in, an extra response. And I kind of feel like they should.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that to err on being able to share as much as you can, right, with the institution to kind of really give a flavor of who you are, right? I think that the two of you have done a great job in reference to, showing some of the tools that you have within the Kansas City Public Schools with Naviance in reference to, hey, where do I want to go? And then it's a question of, hey, how do I match myself to those institutions that I want to attend?
Right.
So we have a question from Ms. Brown. She says that they're actually in Johnson County, and so she's wondering if these programs can be used for any student or just ones in Kansas City, Missouri.
I'll answer from a Common App perspective. We have sort of in the last full application season, we had 1 million students across the country, 100,000 of those international students that use the Common App platform, as I mentioned, to submit close to 5 million applications to, at that point, I think we had 950 institutions last year. We're now over 920 institutions that students can apply to via the Common App.
Yeah, and I know like Blue Valley has like they're a Naviance school user. So I think it just depends on the school district. I would definitely reach out and look at the high school web page and see if they and if they don't have it, kind of like Miss Wynn Hernandez said, find out what program and platform they do use.
What would be the verbiage like to empower a parent to ask? What am I asking specifically? Like, what college and career planning platform do you have? Like, what's the verbiage that I would use? Okay.
Yeah, I would just say that I'm interested in helping my students to navigate this journey and plan for college. I want to know what tools you have available for my students.
Yep. All right, we have a question here from Miss Jarvis again, and she wants to know on the Common App specifically, how or where do families and students find the waivers? So, Karen, that might be one.
There's actually two different locations within the Common App. And again, the Common App is broken into different sort of categories. So there's a demographic section where you would actually get the Common App fee waiver. And then within a member screen, as I mentioned, two different types of fee waivers. One's the Common App fee waiver, and then one are fee waivers that individual institutions will provide for a variety of reasons. Might be a time period that you want to apply. It might be that you actually came to a virtual visit. Those could be in a variety of areas within the member screens, but they usually are fairly prominent to be able to get to visually in those member screens. But then within the demographic section of the Common App, you've got the sort of fee waiver information.
So here's a question. This particular question is about test scores. So will my test scores automatically update in these systems, or will I have to do it manually? So let's say I had one ACT score, SAT score, and then I take it again. Will it automatically update in Naviance and or the Common App, or will I have to go in there and input it myself?
No, so we typically import like students' test scores like weekly. Just so that we can capture any changes that happens, and that will update. I know there was another question about with transcripts, about changes with transcripts, and so our registrars, they do 3 uploads of transcripts each year. They do an initial at the beginning of the year, where every single student's transcript gets uploaded into eDocs, so that it can connect to the Common App, and their transcript is housed there. We do it again at the semester, which is our midterm upload. And then we do it again at the end with the student's final transcript.
Okay.
So at each point, the student's transcript is there when it's ready to be sent out to the schools.
I believe on the Common Black College application, you will have to go in and manually alter those scores yourself, or your counselor will have to go in and manually update those if there is a change. But you would only change them if your score increased. If not, you would leave it alone, to my knowledge.
And Chanel, that is the same on the Common App. So you would actually go and enter those scores manually.
Okay. Here's a good question. Do colleges and universities prefer that students use kind of this like streamlined common application approach, or would they rather students kind of do it specifically their application through like their portals or their way?
I'll give my response, and maybe Dr. Wilson, you can chime in. I think one of the things that, from a membership perspective, right? Because again, we're a nonprofit member-based organization, and we really encourage our members, if they have more than one application platform available via their website, really not to say, hey, they favor one or the other, right? List them side by side, or a top and bottom, but really thinking about making sure that you are right, because we're dealing with kids. We're dealing with kids in a very stressful time in their life. Let's not make it any more stressful. So it's not like, oh, hey, go to my admissions apply now section and there's a flashing light that says use this application because it's gonna get you a better review. We really encourage our members, and they sort of take our guidance to say, hey, it doesn't really matter what application you use. Majority of our members, use close to 800 of our members use more than one application platform.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Like college reps that I keep up with, if they have become members of the Common App, that I think that's kind of the preferred method, because it takes less human capital they have to spend with sending out papers and receiving papers for applications. So, and I know she showed, like, when she was demoing the student, and she was searching for the schools, the little box came up with a CA on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we work with students, like, we let them know that that's an institution that will accept the Common App.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So in addition to the two kind of talking to each other, they have some common language across the Naviance and Common App platforms.
Yes.
That's good to know, because none of this stuff was around when I went to school. We have a question down here from Miss O'Bannon. She wants to know if the test scores on the official transcript accepted are enough. Like, is that good enough?
I'll respond from a Common App perspective. Really, that it depends on what the requirements of the sort of the institution are. We've seen an actual increase in the number of institutions that have gone test optional via COVID. So kind of back to that question earlier in reference to kind of impact from COVID. But you can look at the requirements of those institutions and know that, hey, this is a test optional institution. You can actually even search on test optional institutions. And then, typically a final transcript for all students is required. And as Dr. Wilson pointed out, the integration between Naviance and Common App allows the counselor to deliver that transcript seamlessly via eDocs into the Common App.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that maybe a question like that is super helpful when thinking through students who might struggle to reach kind of those minimum or best scores on the ACT. So maybe it took them up to that final try. So I would think that yes, it is enough, but a conversation with like the admissions personnel to say, hey, what you had is not the case anymore. We took it again and this is what we got. So it might require an extra step if the one on the final transcript is the best one, an additional reach out, another way of like advocating for the little baby. We got another question here about grades on the high school transcript, if that's all that's needed, or does the student also need to request a transcript like for the colleges too? That's a good question.
That is a fantastic question. And I can't tell you how many students I know that take dual credit courses and they do well in those courses, but they don't send the college transcript. And so they miss out on those college hours.
Yep.
So yes, if your student is taking dual credit, the high school transcript will reflect the high school grades typically. And there may be some indication that it's a dual credit course, but the student needs to also get to the college where the credit's being awarded through and get that transcript sent to their college as well. Yep. That
is a huge miss sometimes, because in addition to it helping with like the coursework, it can also, depending on the acceptance of those as credits or not, it can help with the GPA when you get to college too. So just making sure, I know in KCPS we've got dual credit and we also have early college, and so those babies are getting credits on credits on credits. They need to make sure that the institutions that they plan to go to know that those exist and that those grades are there.
And it can save you money.
Boom. Perfect hour.
And the same thing sometimes happens for advanced placement courses. Like a student may score a 4, but they don't actually send that AP transcript to the school to see if the school will award credit for it. So
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting. Like we were all kind of talking about COVID and the approach to this kind of like test optional. I'm actually going to be on a podcast next week where we explore that topic a little more. What would your recommendations be with the test optional piece? Are you recommending that students opt out if they can, or that they take it? What would you guys say?
I think it depends if the colleges are going to look at the scores. Some schools are saying that it's test optional, but they still examine them, and so they could be looking at another candidate who is providing scores, and so that seems to be quite unfair. So if there's an opportunity for you to take the test, I believe you should. Okay. I know that's not the news that people want to hear, but I will say there's a good advantage for students this year. This year, you don't have to take the entire test. If you take it in the past, you can just take certain subject areas. That's another thing we didn't have, Chanel, back in the day. So if you were struggling just on the math portion, you can just take the math portion and not have to take those other areas again.
Yeah.
So that saves you a lot of time, taking the test. You're not as exhausted. You're not tired of the test. And it might motivate you to keep taking that math test until you get the score that you want.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know. On the one hand, I wonder if it can level the playing field, but on the other hand, I wonder if not. But like I said, that's a topic to explore next week. I'm just wondering what your recommendations would be as college pros for students who are in the position where it could be optional or not.
Yeah, I always encourage them to take it. Like, even if the school is test optional, see where you stand. You're working hard, you're focusing. There's a lot of good information that comes along with it too. I taught ACT prep before, and that was a key area, learning what are the things you really need to focus on.
Yeah.
A lot of times students will say, like, yeah, I do need to focus on that. And that's a whole skill in itself that can help them when they get to college.
Yeah, I last week we talked with Tierra Posey and Mike Graham from the Urban League and from PPT Leaders, and both of them their orgs offer ACT prep. And that's huge, I think, especially even in a test optional, because if taking that test can set your application apart from another student's, then now you have a leg up in the application process. But if taking that test gives you anxiety or freaks you out, then getting some help on the front end is probably really critical, but knowing where to go, because that's part of it too. Like, the resources are there. They sometimes seem hidden because, again, first generation college students are very real. And so if I'm coming from a household where the people in that home love me and they are pushing me and they want to support me, they got to know where to go. And that's part of the reason we're doing these sessions. So we got a comment here. When Ms. Armstrong's daughter filled out the Common App, it only allowed her to select 4 schools, but we read it would allow you to choose up to 8 or 10.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened in that situation, because to be honest with you, it's actually up to 20 institutions that you can apply to. I talked about the average, but that doesn't necessarily restrict students. I'm happy to in the comments section, or I guess I can't comment, but I can put it in the private chat, and you might move it over to the comments. Chanel, is our app support email or our app support system. And so there's a way of being able to ask a question via that. So I would go ahead and sort of report that via our support group, and then they would be able to help address that question for you, because that should not happen.
So for clarity, students can apply to up to 20 member institutions on the Common App.
They can, and I'm going to say only about 2% of our applicants do more than 15 applications,
Yeah.
and on average, it's about 5 applications per student.
And Common App and Naviance, they house or upload like FAFSA information too, or is that just all done through the FAFSA site?
It is all done through the FAFSA site. We do not upload any information either to FAFSA or from FAFSA.
All right. Well, if we don't have any more participant questions, we're down to like our last 2 minutes and some change. So if you all have any parting words of wisdom as students get ready for college, I would like for you to share them now. Any words of advice or resources to share, now's the time to do that.
I'll just say, start to think about what excites you, right? Think about what excites you. Think about who you are as your authentic self, and then find ways of being able to convey that via the application, whatever application platform you choose. But if you're really finding ways of being able to sort of convey your authentic self in the application, that's going to show through to the institutions that you want to attend.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I think for me, the biggest thing I want to leave students with is that the college experience can be life-changing in a variety of ways. And so I know we've kind of entered into a phase where everybody is like, okay, let's think about career, trades, careers you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And no, you don't need to go to college to be successful, but there's still value in knowledge. And so I think a lot of it is exposure. And so as much exposure as we can give students college and obtaining that knowledge in a chosen vocation is still powerful. Student life on a campus is powerful. The HBCU experience from a cultural perspective is powerful. So I would just say explore all the options. Like, don't be limited based on what others think is best of you.
And that is powerful advice. My husband and I say all the time, sometimes students go off to school, they stay for a semester, they stay for a year, they don't go back, which, we don't want that. But even those short stints of the collegiate experience, that independence, that responsibility, that immersion in like academics, it alters a person. So if they go and they come back and they go to hair school or barber school, their lens is different. Like the way they approach that business model is different because they've had a level of training or immersion. So I'm glad you named that. The experience alone can sometimes just shift how a person moves or succeeds throughout life. Miss Winston, oh, go ahead, Dr. Wilson. I'm sorry.
Sometimes it's also just maturity. Like I can think right now, 10 former students where that was the scenario. They went off for a semester or a year and then came back home. But after a year or so, like they found their way. They knew what it was that they needed to do and where it was that they wanted to go, and they jumped right back in.
Yeah.
So yeah, I appreciate that.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. Ms. Wynn Hernandez, you got any parting words?
Yes, just very quickly, because I'm an English teacher, that Common App essay is not something that you want to wait till the night before to submit.
Mm-hmm.
All the suggestions that your teachers have made in the past about brainstorming, about planning, and you're developing your characters. You have to show off those best traits, talk about your community service, talk about your leadership experience. Don't talk about just one thing. Remember, they have never met you, and this is how they get to know you. So you want to offer some strong storytelling, and you want to have it proofread, and you want others to read it and get their recommendations from them.
And that is actually super important that you talk specifically about writing. Just brainstorming out loud. I'm really considering doing another segment geared toward how to really empower those scholarship essays and those application essays. And there's a guy on YouTube called The College Essay Guy. That's what he's called. And he's amazing. Like he breaks those things down in these bite-sized chunks for students to think through how they're going to present themselves. And so I reached out to him. We'll wait to hear back. And if he's willing, I'm going to have him on because I think it's important for kids to be able to see that it feels like a mountain, that writing piece, but if we attack it little by little and jump on it early, then we can get it done and we can do it effectively.
Mm-hmm.
Cool beans. Well, thank you all for being here. Ms. Wynn Hernandez, Dr. Wilson, Mr. Kennedy, all of you have been really helpful to the whole HBCU crew. So we want to say thanks and have a good night.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.